Now we are starting the second part of the video on plant reproduction. In the first part we were dealing with asexual reproduction, and this part we will deal with sexual reproduction. Now growing new plants without seeds is called asexual reproduction, and it requires only one parent. Growing new plants from seeds is sexual reproduction. It requires two parents. So when it requires one parent and we do not grow the plant from seed, that would be asexual. When we need two parents and we are growing the plants from seed, it would be sexual reproduction. Here is a single parent, one parent, giving rise to a spore which grows into a new plant. This would be asexual reproduction. Here are two parents, parent 1, parent 2, a male parent and female parent, each producing a cell, a male cell or male gamete and a female cell or a female gamete, that join together to form a single cell and then grow into a new plant. That would be sexual reproduction. So when you grow plants from spore, that involves only one parent, that would be asexual. When you grow plants from seeds that involve two parents, seed formation requires two parents, that would be sexual reproduction. Now we have already seen that roots, stems, leaves are vegetative parts and flowers are the reproductive parts. A typical flower has a calyx, that is a ring of green sepals. You can see that the sepals are green in color. That is the outermost calyx or sepals, green in color. A ring of colored petals called corolla. This is the corolla, yellow in color. Here we have it red in color. Red petals forming, or yellow petals or any other color, colorful petals forming corolla. Andrecium, which is a group of stamens. Here you can see a group of stamens, not one stamens, many stamens. Here also stamen, stamen, stamen. So this is a group of stamen forming the andrecium. A gynoecium forming what is called the pistil, formed by a ring of carpels. Here we have the pistil in the center. So calyx or green sepals, corolla or colored petals, andrecium, stamens, and gynoecium, pistil. In flower, andrecium or stamens are the male parts, and gynoecium, pistil or carpels are the female parts. And here this is an example of the stamen, which consists of a stalk and an anther. Stamens are the male part. Each stamen has a long stalk called the filament and a swollen anther at the top. Filament, and at the top you have anther. The anther is bilobed. Here you can see the two lobes, one lobe and two lobe, having 2 into 2 pollen sacs. That means 2 in the first lobe and 2 in the second lobe. Lobe number 1 and lobe number 2. 2 pollen sacs each. 4 pollen sacs filled with fine pollen grains. Pollen grains produce the male gametes. Do not think pollen grains are the male gametes. Pollen grains produce the male gamete. In flower, the gynoecium or pistil is a female part. Each pistil has a swollen ovary at the base. This is the swollen ovary at the base. This is the swollen ovary. A sticky or feathery receptive stigma. This is a stigma, sticky or feathery at the top. And a narrow tubular style connecting the two. This is the style which connects the stigma and the ovary. Ovary contains ovules. You can see here ovules. Inside each ovule is a female gamete. Female gamete is also called ovum. Another name for female gamete is ovum. Now, this is the structure of an ovule. Now, ovule structure is not in the syllabus, but the reason why we are showing you is, see, inside the ovule there are many cells, of which only one of the cell is the ovum. So, ovule is not the ovum. Inside the ovule, you have got the ovum. So, ovum or female gamete is inside the ovule, but that is only one of the cells inside the ovule. So, do not say ovule is the female gamete. Ovule contains the female gamete, or the ovum, female gamete ovum is present inside the ovule. Now, bisexual and unisexual flowers. Some flowers have both stamens and pistils. Here we have a flower, it has stamens and also pistil. These are bisexual flowers. Some flowers may have only stamens and some flowers may have only pistil. These are unisexual flowers. This flower has stamens only, so it would be called a male flower. This has only pistil, no stamens, that would be a female flower. So male and female flowers are unisexual, but when both stamens and pistil are present, that would be bisexual. So rose, mustard, tulip, hibiscus, these are bisexual. Papaya, cucumber, maize, pumpkin, these are unisexual. If the flowers are unisexual, then you have male and female flowers. Male and female flowers may be present on the same plant or on separate plants. One plant having only male flowers and one plant having only female flowers. That is also possible. Now, next is pollination. Transfer of pollen from the anther to the stigma is called pollination. Now, this may be from the anther to the stigma of the same flower, from the anther to the stigma of another flower, but on the same plant, from the anther to the stigma of a flower on a different plant. The flower could be same, the flower could be different, but the plant could be same, and the plants could be different. The first two, that is same flower or same plant, that's self-pollination. And when the flowers are on different plant, from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower on a different plant, that would be cross-pollination. We have two plants, plant A, plant B. When from the anther, the pollen grains are transferred to the pistil of the same flower, it would be self-pollination. When they are transferred to a different flower, from the anther to the stigma of a different flower on a different plant, then that would be cross-pollination. Agents of pollination. How do pollen grains travel from the anther to the stigma? Wind, water, insects. Here we have the wind pollination. The pollen grains floating on or carried by the wind. They are floating on air and they will be carried by the wind. Here we have an insect pollination. An insect sits on this flower, the pollen grains will stick to the body and then it will sit on another flower. And we can also have pollination by water. Male flowers are floating on water and going to the female plant. So we can have pollination by wind, pollination by water, and pollination by insects. Wind, water, and insects are called the agents of pollination. After pollination, we have fertilization. The male gamete fuses or joins with the female gamete to produce a single cell called zygote. And this fusion of male and female gamete is called fertilization. So you have a male gamete and a female gamete, both are joined and forms the zygote. This is fertilization. And after fertilization, the zygote will develop into a baby plant called embryo. What happens after fertilization? This is very important. Ovary changes to fruit. What was ovary will become fruit. Ovules become seeds, and the fertilized ovum or zygote will form the embryo. Ovary becomes fruit, ovules become seeds, and the zygote becomes embryo. The seeds will be inside the fruit and the embryo will be inside the seed. Now fruits may be dry. Here we have dry fruit, almond, apricot, groundnut. Fruits may be juicy or fleshy. They are mango, tomato, orange. These are juicy and fleshy fruit. Next we have seed dispersal. After fertilization, seeds are formed inside the fruit. Now the seeds need to be scattered far and wide. They should be scattered far and wide away from the parent plant. This is dispersal, scattering of the seeds away from the parent plants. Why is it necessary? To reduce competition for food, water and sunlight. All the seeds germinating in the same place, there would be tough competition for food and water and sunlight. To avoid overcrowding in a small area, to ensure wider distribution of the species. So we can have a wind dispersal like winged seeds like drumstick or maple, or very light seeds like grasses, or hairy seeds, or hairy fruit like in sunflower. It can be dispersed by water, fruits with fibrous coating which can float like coconut. It can disperse by animals, spiny seeds with hooks which stick to the bodies of the animal. Edible seeds are dispersed by animals. They eat the fruit and throw away the seeds elsewhere. And sometimes they are dispersed by explosion, bursting. They burst open with force and scatter the seeds far and wide. So here we have, for instance, winged seeds, that is wind dispersal. Here also we have animal dispersal. The animals will carry. Dispersal by water in case of coconut. Here we have the animal dispersal. The bird will eat the fruit, fly away elsewhere and drop the seeds. And we also have commercial dispersal. For instance, there is a farmer. He is growing, say, mangoes. He will send boxes of mangoes by plane or bus or train to distant places, even another country. And people will eat the fruit and throw the seeds there. So even it can be carried by planes or trains to distant places during our commercial transactions. So dispersal by wind, dispersal by water, dispersal by explosion, dispersal by animals or humans. You have the examples. Easy Elite English Educational Trust. That was our video on plant reproduction part 2. So hope you have enjoyed the video. Thank you and goodbye.